everyone. Please join me in welcoming tonight's guest, someone who has built a remarkable career across 3 countries and 2 continents. So Ravi RV is a customer success architect at IBM Canada. And there she specializes in data, AI, and automation. Her impact, however, goes far beyond that of her day job. So as an immigrant who's lived in and worked in India, the United States, and Canada, Raji truly brings a global approach and perspective to everything that she does. So that perspective fuels her Substack publication, Explainable AI, where she breaks down complex AI concepts and core principles, real-world use cases, and the ethics behind the technology. And she does that in a way that anyone can understand. Hundreds of subscribers tune in for exactly that frequently. She's also a passionate advocate for women in tech, career starters navigating in tech sales, and newcomers finding their footing in North America. Raji's proof that you don't need to choose between technical excellence and human storytelling. She does both exceptionally well. So please, let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. That was one of an amazing introduction, I would say. Thank you so much. I'm here to actually share a common problem that every enterprise encounters today, which is shadow AI. What is shadow AI? Shadow AI is an AI which is used or practiced that is not governed, which is not approved within an enterprise. And every enterprise is struggling with this. Why they are struggling with this? Because it is an unmanaged innovation. Innovation is needed, but an unmanaged innovation is a threat, especially when it is actually happening in an enterprise, because it could be costly, it could be expensive. But does that mean we need to stop innovating? No, we should be innovating in a controlled, guardrailed way. That's the absolute need we need to apply in the enterprise landscape today. So let me break down in technical terms what is shadow AI. Shadow AI is a big threat to all enterprise, and what it means is any AI that you use without being approved or sanctioned within the enterprise is called shadow AI. And it is actually used or applied or practiced in multiple ways. But when you actually do this in the generative AI, today's world, it is adding more threat. I'll take a classic example of a data scientist sitting along with the business folks and trying to create a model and predict a metric or predict an algorithm, generate this algorithm, right? So it seems quite normal in a business case scenario. And that was happening earlier as well. And it was encouraged. That's where the innovation is happening. But the same thing, when we use a generative AI, it becomes a problem because the data is no longer staying within the organization. Right? The shadow AI, which is not, the model is never monitored even before. When you are actually analyzing and coming up with the thesis of is this even a use case that I would like to scale? There was no challenge before, but now there is a different challenge, and shadow AI, which is an unmanaged and unregulated and unapproved AI, unsanctioned AI, is a big challenge. What kind of challenges it actually gives, right? So the challenge is massive. There is a 96% of the organization, they are using AI, and also it is a massive increase. The number of applications that are generated is triple folded. Probably now within few weeks, it's maybe more than 4 or 5 times because with the speed and the change that is happening right now, what was there as a skill became an action and became an MCP server and now become a plugin, right? So the change is happening fast, massively in weeks. And 15% of them are using unsanctioned tools. What does it mean? There are tools that people just download and install and just like that, start using it, starting from browser plugins to installing any unapproved softwares and models which transmit data probably as well, or like get the data for retraining as well. So this is the reality. And why is it a problem? Oh, why is it a problem, right? Because the data is sorry.
I just have a question. When you say shadow AI, is it maybe like a data analyst putting all the important information on ChatGPT and being like, "Can you help me with this?" Or is it more
Yes,
like,
that is one form of shadow AI.
is it also the fact like someone can generate an AI for themselves? So that is it possible that it could be that someone is generating an AI, like they use the blueprints of ChatGPT to make it their own, maybe to add information and then also use it?
Yes, it could. The shadow AI covers everything. So it could be unapproved models. It could be unapproved generative AI models that you're using, etc. So I'll give you an example. Like yesterday, I was chatting with the enterprise leader who's implementing generative AI within a life sciences industry. He had a chat with his legal team, and his legal team came up with a use case saying, "Hey, I have already derived a blueprint using Copilot, and these are the prompts that I'm using." You know what is the use case? The use case is patenting a research in a medical discovery. So they were so shocked to see, like, you can't do this. You cannot do this. How this is ridiculously wrong, and you shouldn't be doing this. What if the data actually is, like, used for retraining, and what if the data gets actually leaked, right? So you shouldn't be doing this. That was the response that he gave. So this just happened over a casual phone conversation between me and the leader who is implementing life sciences use cases for one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, right? So these kind of shadow AI is what is happening in the industry. And I think I skipped it. Yes, every function, not just one or two or the three. The example that I gave you is a legal industry, which is actually going through this problem, right? So how the data is handled. Is the data handled or encrypted? Is that even the data actually going to a data center which is hosted elsewhere in the country? Nowadays, enterprises are becoming even more averse to the models or the model inferences. Where is it happening? It's going to that level, right? Anywhere any of these shadow AI happens, it is a challenge. It is a big threat and it is a big risk. What kind of issues that it is actually going to result into? So, first of all, why is it happening? Because it's easily available. Anybody can access it, and I want to get into the implementation faster. There is a competitive pressure, and adoption is a little slower in an enterprise landscape. Because of all these reasons, shadow AI is taking charge. But the result is there's a lot of risks that it actually comes along with it. What are the different risks? Data leakage, IP exposure, and the vulnerabilities. The moment you actually install a browser plugin which can actually perform certain tasks for you, you are welcoming a vulnerability. Or you are violating a HIPAA law where your client information is going out. So there are customers who are really recognizing the threat, ask for, is my data that I'm sending, the PII is encrypted or, like, masked? So that's the right questions that the governance and the compliance asks. But the shadow AI, which is implemented by a regular normal employee, may actually miss these governance and guardrails. And also, it actually involves hallucinations and biases as well. So, how well the model is actually trained to respond. For example, HR using a generative AI model to process a resume and evaluate a resume. But if they are actually using a ready to use model, how well they know that the model is not having a biased output? Have they grounded and tested it? That's a that's a big risk, right? So these things are the challenges that it gets missed out easily. Yes.
So yeah, I read about just today that there's an article from the University of Stanford explaining no matter how much they will try to force ChatGPT, it wouldn't trying to tell the user they were on the wrong side, like trying to correct
That's
them.
right. That's called AI. Okay, I'm forgetting the term. Okay, so I tend to agree with you, whatever you say. So there are use cases that which I have heard about this use case getting implemented to one of the largest enterprise organization, where literally some of the data where they have removed the he and she's in the resume, and qualified resume has been cleaned up without any references to whether the person is a male or female, and then the entire vector database was created in a very clean way so that the job evaluation and match can actually happen in an accurate fashion. So yeah, these are the ways that how you can mitigate the biases, and in spite of that, after doing this also there is a monitoring need. You need to still continue to monitor if it is actually performing it accurately or not.
Don't you believe that with how AI is still new, that there is probably a lot of vulnerabilities and unpatched um, pathways that people can navigate through it to hack into these companies? Like if someone, say for instance, someone puts their file on ChatGPT, don't you think someone could either get into that person's account and using those information?
You don't even have to get into their account, right? The history is available for someone to search and get it as well.
Yeah, but I'm more asking, do you think that there's a lot more unknown vulnerabilities that comes with AI because of how new it is? That there's just so many unpatched work that could potentially get a lot of people in a lot of risk.
Absolutely, it might put a lot of people under risk, right? You are what law you are breaking, what kind of agreements you are breaking.
Yeah, very good point. Because actually, just asking in regards to, because you talk about the compliance exposure, are there any like legislations that are on the forefront of AI to make sure that we are doing the best things possible?
There are a lot of regulations that are coming up. EU AI Act is pretty rock solid. And if you take Canadian laws, OSFI is the one who define a lot of regulations and compliance around that. And they have proposed a bill called TE23, which mandates all the financial institutions who manage the money to be compliant on all their generative AI models should be monitored and tracked. It is a compliant that the law has been in different stages now, and if that gets passed by 2027, if I'm not wrong, month of May, everybody should be compliant. Yeah, so there are lots of laws coming up, and if you look at in states, there are several regulations that are coming up by and put by provinces level, right? So they have different states have different laws.
If you had to pick like one country, province, or whatever to be on the leading edge of AI legislation regulation, who would it be?
EU AI Act is pretty solid. When it comes to the risk and compliance, they have a very elaborate, detailed explanation of things. Yeah.
Wouldn't Singapore be one of the main countries that is developing AI as we speak? Because they have a growing tech industry because of like.
Singapore probably is one of the emerging countries, but if you look at the frontier models, when it comes to frontier models, definitely China and US. US is the one which has the most advanced frontier models for sure, and China is not much behind it.
China also uses its own cloud away from most people, and they keep it in the countries because they have their own compliance and governance when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, so they have a lot of sovereignty law already in place, but then it's about protecting the customer, right? Protecting how well the law is actually protecting the end user and customer. But if you ask me, China, do they have that? No, because everything is exposed to the government. There's no privacy for a person. So that's in that way, I have a different lens for China.
Well, because I've been there multiple times. Even when they produce Apple phones, the operating system that we have here is very different than theirs. Because like a small example is like Japan has that if you have an iPhone, the camera noise has to be on. Like you cannot turn it. It depends on every country, and when
Yeah.
they make it in that country, they change it based on the laws of the country.
Absolutely. Europe actually did that, right? You know, the USB cable, the whole reason is Europe. Europe did that.
Yeah.
Just curious, with Google releasing the CLI that's based on agents, does that increase the risk of shadow AI, or does it perhaps bolster governance at enterprise level where they can have a bit more control?
No, CLI agents exist in across all platforms as well. Like for example, even the ADK from Open AI also has the CLI based development of agents and deploying.
It's specific to their tools.
Yeah.
So it's specific to Gmail or Google Docs. So the average user, the average worker, oh, this is interesting. I can connect my Gmail and this is great. I can get all my reporting done. So just curious how you might balance off shadow AI with, just because you can juggle a chainsaw doesn't mean you should.
That's
Is
true.
where I'm
That's true.
coming from.
Yeah, every use case needs to be assessed in a way, and there are certain things that probably can be controlled, or like minimally invasive ones, which is personal information only. And if even in that case, what is the model you are using? Is that model is actually taking your data outside, or the model is actually running in your local machine? So if it is everything locally running in Olama, then it reduces the threat. And if you're using it only for your personal productivity, it reduces the risk. But if you're using a client data, then it actually questions. Okay. Yes.
I wanted to ask, is shadow AI not the same governance DLP problem that we've struggled with in enterprise?
I'm going to actually get to that, how it is governed in the further slide. So your question is going to be answered in that. Perfect. Okay, so just to give you a perspective, IBM did analysis and study. As part of the IBM security, the cost of data breach report 2025 was published in July 2025, and they identified lack of access control among the organizations in AI-related breaches is 97%. So which means any of the AI-related implementation should also have access-specific guardrails. For example, your MCP server, although it has the observability to an extent, or you can build an observability on top of it to make sure that the traffic is what is it responding, it also needs a access control. There is a need to build an access plane, and agents and your MCP tools also needs to have, right? So that's based on today's evolution, but tomorrow I don't know what's going to come. But this is based on the data. And lack of governance. There is no substantiate AI governance policies that are there in place. So it's very important we start from the beginning of create a policy or adhere to the policy which is already there, and then implement and observe, right? So that's the absolute path to mitigate this risk. I'm going to get into how to implement in a controlled guardrail way, which is called constructive governance. I would like to call this as a constructive governance because that is what is actually going to help the industry as well as enterprise to innovate in a constructive way, in a controlled way, at the same time without compromising any risks and threats. So how do we do that? It's a three-step process. First is to discover the opportunity, assess the risk associated with that opportunity. Is it a claims processing in an insurance industry? What are the risks associated with the claims processing in an insurance industry? That's an example of how to look at things. Second, set guardrails. Once you identify, is there any guardrails that is applicable to this particular process? The one I talked about, OFC rule or the law that is coming soon, right? So it's not just going to impact only banks. when we call financial institutions, even the insurance companies who are dealing with your group retirements plans are also impacted. So it's very important how these policies are impacting your use cases needs to be tracked and governed. And the third is the after you deploy or implement, govern it. How do we govern it? Observability. Build in observability and govern it. And how do we do this? As part of the phase one, which is basically the identifying the use case, discover and understand, create an inventory and visibility and do the risk mapping and baseline the metrics which you want to apply for this particular use case. That's the very first step. And the second step is guardrails and fast paths. Use the AI policy which is relevant to the use case that you have identified, and there are tons of toolkits that are coming up. If you can apply that, for example, if you go and look into a specific tool, insurance specific guardrails are readily available. If that is something that you can use it, use the toolkits. That's going to make your life easier and faster. And fast track the intake. Why do we need to fast track the intake? Because shadow AI will actually grow if you are not able to cater to the need of the business in a faster way. So that is important so that the business doesn't feel left behind. They don't have to go and invent or invest time and resource in doing things on their own. So that's the reason to fast track the intake. How do you do the fast tracking the intake, right? Like you need to bring in an education within the organization and also simplify the way to intake a process. For example, I was part of the one of the largest banks in US, Center of Excellence for Robotic Process Automation. So if we have to cater to the bank and build 100 RPA agents in a year and scale it to 300 to 500 bots in a year, how fast you should act and how simplified you should be doing. There are different methodologies you should use and different intake you should take, and then criteria that you should define. So simplify that and evangelize it within the organization so your business comes to you, right? So the enterprise IT the governance team runs this show. And finally, third phase is embed oversight and culture, right? So everyone should have access to what they have implemented, put things into production, and how is it performing and how is it running today. So that's very important. So continuous monitoring, and if things fail, who needs to be informed, and identify any gaps in there in a continuous fashion and complete it. For example, the bill that gets passed today can get amended next year. So how do we actually inform the respective people who have put that agent into production, put that model into production? So that loop should be closed automatically. So quickly, let's jump into a demo. So I have got two demos. So the first demo is a quick video, and the second demo I have got a interactive show. So let's take this first demo. So we have a compliance consultant, and what we are looking at here is a Consumer Protection Act. So the Consumer Protection Act is something that exists forever for a very long period of time. But what happens is, look at the number of amendments it has. So it gets amended every now and then. Imagine if the compliance consultant have to check this every day. No, he's not going to do that. So, but if he missed to check it for probably 6 months or 3 months or 1 year, then all the use cases that are dependent on this particular Consumer Protection Act gets impacted and they're going to be non-compliant, right? So which is very risky. And if the regulators find it, you are under a huge hefty fine, right? So how do we address this, right? So there are tools that are available in the market to detect the change, which can continuously monitor and identify what needs to be updated and extract the relevant information that is impacting you and summarize the impact and where is the change that needs to be applied and initiate a change management process. So this is for regulations and you have use cases that has already been put into production, right? So this will help in terms of an enterprise staying compliant for a specific act or a law and the dependent use cases that are adhering to this or impacted due to this law. So what the tools can actually do is this is an agent which is going to analyze the impact and give you a summary and automatically create a workflow for you to assign it to the right person and initiate a workflow. Why do we need a workflow? Why is it even assigning it to a person? Because very simple, the enterprise compliance team don't own all the models, because if you look at the enterprise landscape, there's going to be hundreds of models. They wouldn't know what this model or what this agent does. Only the respective owner knows about it. And again, you need a compliance workflow because you just can't approve it by the developer, right? So there's going to be a developer, there's going to be a business owner, and there's going to be a regulatory owner, right? So the risk reviewer or someone. So you need all parties to be involved to get this use case changed, updated, to be compliant and approved. So it doesn't happen in a day, but maybe within a stipulated period of time, it goes through the different steps, and in the screen that you're looking at is like a reviewer looking into the completed process and reviewing the change and approving it, right? So the essence is it goes through the review process and approved and submitted. So you can track this using a regulated, observed, change grounded approach. So that's the essence of this demo. And here is how the regulated changes are managed in an enterprise.
Could you use that for like accessibility changes over time too? Like amount of accessibility changes required for web pages now, right? Like are insane to make sure that it's like readable in multiple languages.
Yeah, it can work. Yeah, usually the like IBM products are like the settings can be changed to show in English or French or other languages. Typically, they are configurable.
And this kind of works with the other languages as necessary.
Yeah. It's a product that exists for probably a decade. So it's not something new, but it's been just extended to address other needs such as the agentic view. That's what is actually extended with respect to that. Okay, I want to jump into another demo right after this and show you more. So basically the reviewer is actually saying, yes, I reviewed it, and putting their stamp, and then adding their comments and see where the impact has happened, and then saying, yes, good to go. If not, they're going to add additional information and send them back for review process.
And this is called Open Pages?
Yes.
Jira almost. Is it like a Jira kind of methodology?
So the beauty of Open Pages is it has a lot of built-in modules with respect to the risk and the overall regulatory risks with respect to each country, each act, and each information. So they have a lot of built-in workflows and a lot of built-in matrices to it's all grounded already for you. Comes industry-based templates you can use. So there are tons of information that you can configure it quickly and use it and customize for your organization. So it's one of the GRC governance risk compliance product.
Does that fit into your other risk compliance platforms or other risk?
Yes, governance, risk, and compliance.
You can do Archer or whatever else with it.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to jump into another demo. Okay, so here is where a very detailed dashboard which shows A governance console which shows the complete information of what are the inventory of AI and ML models or generative AI stuffs that are running in your entire organization, right? So how many agents are there, and what are the different models, and what are the different departments, what are the different use cases, and what are the compliance issues that are going on, right? So everything in one place. That's the governance. What it's called, a product called What's Next Governance. So that essentially that covers your enterprise ground end to end. So I'm going to jump to the agent specific dashboard. So the reason why we have agent specific dashboard, the story of an agent is different from a story of a machine learning model, right? So that's why we have a separate agent specific dashboard on where are my agents, how many agents are compliant, or is the risk assessment done for the specific agents, are there, how many, like usually the risk assessment needs to be done on a certain periodic way, right? So we can track everything from one single place here. And compliance dashboard. So the compliance dashboard talks about how my compliance status with respect to each use case, each business lines, etc. And next is the AI security. Here is where some of the issues with respect to shadow AI or CVE, which is the vulnerabilities, can be tracked as well. And what are the different misconfigurations or the pen test findings. We can configure however we would like to track, and what are the different matrices we would like to track as part of the AI security. And next is your own personalized task. So if you own only the agent space, then you care about your agent space and you can trigger the workflows and initiate the workflows. Or if you're an approver, here's where the approval process happens, etc. So the demo which we saw before. Okay, so that's about the next demo. I'm going to switch back to the presentation. So this is about life cycle. So I want to walk you through like a memory lane. What happens in an organization, right? So I'm so sorry for the tiny like fonts here. I'll try to read it out. So the first step, as far it is initiated by the business, which is the intake. We talked about simplifying the intake, which will make the business happier. That's the first step. And the second gate process is we identify what are the different assessment that needs to happen or for a specific use case. That's where the open pages, which we saw, comes into picture. It makes everybody's life easier by generating an automated templates and different matrices. Typically, we need to care about and we need to track based on the type of use case that they select, right? So next step is to review the development of the implementation as required, which is essentially done by the security, governance, and ops, right? So you have three different gate reviews. Reviews happen. So the security review has to happen at this stage itself. So that's the first level of review, and followed by the horizontal path, which is basically it's all unified. So the second gate is it's like a testing, right? So is it built according to the required grounded information? Build the evals. If you heard of evals, which is the evaluation metrics, so build the evals and evaluate them as well. Identify those evaluation metrics, right? So the next step is even though we are using the AI development platform, there can be some requirements that we will uncover and start amending them, right? So that's how we will actually end up doing another review before it goes to deployment. So deploy your solution. Finally, the third one comes is like a final gate review just before the deployment, and after you do the deployment, continue to monitor. So this is the whole life cycle and different activities that happen in a life cycle. Okay. Any questions?
Raji, I think that on average, what would you say the time from intake of it to deployment? What would be the average time there in enterprise?
It depends. So let me tell you from my experience of I used to be part of the Robotic Process Automation Center of Excellence. So from an intake to production, it is measured within weeks based on the size of the project. So if it is a small, it always takes a little bit additional time when you are doing it for the first time. So the first time is because there is a lot of learning and a lot of challenges that hoops that you need to go through. But the moment you actually get to the velocity, then it will take 8 to 10 weeks for a small project.
What is some of the biggest hangups that you've had so far with project initiation with this?
See, it all depends on the business case, right? So I've seen a lot of funny stuffs like, the moment you actually qualify a use case to be a compliance use case, then nobody cares about the return on investments. You will automatically get approved. So which is a typical scenario in an enterprise world I have seen. But then otherwise, the ROI, you need to have a justification of a ROI as part of the business case. That's very important before you qualify and go into a proposed use case. So that's something very important. That's the piece which could possibly take time or stall a project.
Raj, it's nice. Yeah,
So,
I love what you do.
yeah, I know that the landscape is super different, right? When it comes to enterprise, there are so many bells and whistles that comes into picture. Because, for example, look at the banks, right? They cannot be operating like someone because they are responsible for handling the data. They're responsible for all the information that they hold on to, right? So they are regulated for a reason. So these regulated industries and these regulated environments definitely need such process and such environment to be adhered. Yeah, yeah. So the impact is huge. Yeah, and so what's the call to action? Let's not close the doors for enterprises from innovating. We need to actually give them the necessary tools and necessary capabilities to actually open the door and start innovating. So quick recap, this is what we saw. So what is unsanctioned AI that it can actually result into? And how do we scale, identify the risks, and what are the different root causes, and how do we go forward in the life cycle, and what's the next governance demo we saw. And finally, I have put some reading materials and sources. I can share this deck with everyone. Feel free to reach out or read this. This is my email, and stay connected, and my LinkedIn. Yeah, so any final questions? Yes.
There was a question from the audience earlier, which was, how do you stop bucket in? I could see that being effective. Do you see any other solutions that address that question that she had asked earlier?
I see the plugins is a really good approach that's coming up within the organizations as well. For example, I use a tool called Workshop within IBM, internal tool. If I want to actually go and search for a particular product's capability or feature information, I want a chat interface. Every time I don't have to create a custom window or similar to Notebook LM, right? So I don't have to create one. So the plugins okay, product A plugin, product B plugin. So all that I need to do is to add the plugins and then just start asking questions. So even the documents you don't have to care about. So let's say you want to ask any legal questions and HR questions to your organization. So you don't have to upload your policy information into your own version of ChatGPT and ask questions. It can be readily available to you in a click of a button. So that is coming to the chat interfaces. So soon you will see that becoming more and more applied into your own copilots or all sorts of interfaces. Welcome. Yes, Chris?
One more quick question is it a risk for prompt injection if I'm utilizing Shadow AI and I'm taking
Yes.
it home and I bring it back? What's to stop, or where are the flags constraints around that?
So let me like phrase it out to everyone. The question is, how do we handle the prompt injection, right? So if you are using an unregulated and unsanctioned AI, so let's say you ask a question which is probably a harmless question you're asking, but then your response that the ChatGPT or any kind of agent generates have mischievous information, or like prompt injection prone response it is generating. And imagine you're copying that response and pasting it into your a Word document or your policy document or somewhere, and that gets uploaded to somewhere, and that results in prompt injection. So which means the document is actually now giving instructions to your agent to do something wrong. Yes, there are guardrails that we can build to protect that. So whether this prompt that you are actually using or the response that you are, the document that you are uploading has any prompt instructions can be vetted. And similar to that, there are other guardrails that the industries and tools like governance also has, which is called as like HAP, hate, abuse, profanity metrics, right? So these can be applied and controlled. So these guardrails are coming readily at an enterprise level tools, and it's mandatory to use them. Okay, all right. So thank you so much for the opportunity.